Hi there. Welcome to the very first episode of Loose Threads and Stitches. I'm Christen with ISeeStarsQuilting, and I'm very excited to kick off this series with you. This series is going to feel like more than just a quilting chat or a tutorial. This is a space that I have created for us to slow down, to grab a cup of coffee or tea or whatever you like, and to connect, whether you're here to feel inspired, to laugh a little bit, or to just feel less alone in the crazy creative journey that we're all on. This series is going to be for you, and I hope that you feel really at home here. I have always believed that quilting is so much more than just sewing pieces of fabric together. It's about telling stories. It's about making something meaningful with your hands and finding those moments of joy, especially in the midst of our busy lives. And, sometimes it's about embracing the messy parts of our lives, like those UFOs, those unfinished objects that we have hanging out. And that's what we're going to talk about today. My hope with this Loose Threads and Stitches series of videos is not to replace the tutorial videos that I have and the quilting videos that I have. I still want to create those for you because I know how handy those are to have as a beginner quilter and an intermediate quilter. And when you want to try something new, and I don't want to stop creating those. So my hope with the Loose Threads and Stitches series of videos is to create a space where we can chat like we're friends, and we can tackle all the questions that quilters everywhere are asking, and the ones that I get in my email box every single week. And maybe we can even dig into the deeper side of just creativity and life, because quilting, just like life, it isn't about perfection. It's about showing up and trying and finding joy in the process, no matter what part of the journey that you're on. So whether you're stitching away while listening to this, catching up on an episode of YouTube, or you're just here for a little bit of creative company, I'm really glad that you're here. Today we're going to be diving into a topic that I know a lot of us can relate to. Those UFOs that are lurking in our sewing spaces, right? Let's chat about why they're totally okay and how we can embrace them instead of feeling shame. Okay, raise your hand if you have more UFOs than you'd like to admit. And don't worry, I can't actually see you, so I don't know what your what your situation over there is, but I will go first, okay? I cleaned out a lot of UFO projects last year, and I'm very proud of that, okay? I'm really proud of it because it was bothering me. It was bothering me. I had enough UFO projects to start my own quilt shop. Like, it was bad. But guess what? I learned how to be totally fine with it, because really no matter what your number is, it's totally fine. And today I want to share why those unfinished projects aren't the enemy, and how to decide what to keep or what to let go, some of the creative ways that I handled them, and the ones that were in my stash. And there's no judging here today, okay? Trust me, we're in this together. I did a lot of research on this last year, and I want to share with you kind of what I learned and how I got through it. Today's a cozy day, if you couldn't tell. Today is a very cozy day. So let's talk about UFOs. Let's start talking about why the UFOs happen. For most of us, they're not a sign of failure, and I don't see them as a sign of failure at all. I see them as a sign of ambition. Now, this is just like reframing how you see them in your own work, right? I see them as a sign of ambition, of curiosity. You see a new pattern, you fall in love with it, you dive in head first. But then somewhere along the way, life got busy, or you realize the project isn't what you had hoped it would be. Things didn't work out. Maybe you hadn't quite learned enough skills to be in that level of quilting yet. But, somehow along the way, it turned into a UFO. I've got a quilt top in my room. Personal story time. I've got a quilt top in my sewing room right now that I started 5 years ago. I loved the fabric. I loved everything about it. But halfway through, I realized I didn't love where the pattern was going. It didn't do it for me. And it's been sitting in a bin ever since, because that's how I organize my projects, right? It's been sitting in a bin. It's been taking up space for a really long time. And I have felt really guilty about it. But, you know, over the last year or so, here's what I've learned. Creativity, it doesn't follow a straight path. And sometimes those unfinished projects are just part of the process. They're just part of the path. So how do you decide what to do with your UFOs? You know, how do you decide when enough is enough? So I'm going to break it down into 3 options for you. There's the keep it, let it go, or get creative is what I like to call the last one. But before we dive into those specifics, I want to address something that I think we all need to hear, and that it's okay if things that once excited you don't excite you anymore. It's totally okay. You know, as creatives, we change and we grow. You know, what inspires you 5 years ago may not align or inspire who you are today, and that's totally okay. You know, letting go of a project, it doesn't mean that you're giving up. It means that you're honoring the person that you've become in the moment, and you're making space for the projects and ideas that can fit into your creative journey. You know, there's plenty of arguments that you could come up with that go against what I was just saying there when it comes to, like, you know, but I spent good money on it, or like, but that was a project for so-and-so that I wanted to give that as a gift and I still haven't given it, you know, I promised it 3 Christmases in a row, or whatever it is. But I want you to ask yourself if every time you look at that project and it makes you feel guilty for another month, for another year, and it's sat unfinished because you're not inspired to work on it. You know, creativity shouldn't feel like a chore, and your sewing space should not be this gallery or shrine of unfinished promises, right? It should be a playland of all of the possibilities of your fabric stash and the scraps that you're holding on to and all the things that do bring you joy. So this is your permission slip to let go of the guilt. That guilt, it doesn't serve you, and it definitely doesn't serve your creativity. So when you let go of a project, whether you donate it, trade it, or you simply decide that it's not for you anymore, you're not failing. You're choosing freedom. Freedom to focus on what inspires you right now and to create without this lingering weight of obligation. Personal story time here. I had this project once, and it was this beautiful set of star blocks. Like, I mean, me and stars, right? Like, everything aligned. It was perfect for me. But, you know, every time I pulled them out, I'd think, I really should finish this because I need to, right? Like, it's for me, it's stars, I need it. But it never really felt exciting to me. I don't know what it was. I think it might have just turned into like an obligation more than like a passion project. And that was a rough one for me, but finally I decided to let it go. I had gotten, you know, probably about halfway through sewing the blocks, and I knew that there wasn't going to be any time in the next 3 years that I was going to want to work on that project. And so I donated the blocks to a local quilt guild, and I let someone else finish them for me and turn it into a stunning quilt. You know, that quilt got finished by somebody else, and now it's living its life in somebody else's home that is adored, and they love it. And honestly, letting it go made me feel so much lighter, and like I had more room to breathe creatively every time that I opened up my closet, right? So if you revisit one of the UFOs or a project that you can think of immediately in your head, and it doesn't give you like good happy feelings, it kind of makes you feel like ugh, like just not good. You know the projects I'm talking about. I know you know the projects that I'm talking about. All the quilters have one, right? If it doesn't give you that little flicker of excitement, then it maybe isn't a keeper. But if it does give you joy and it does give you that flicker of excitement down inside, you know, it's a keeper. But, you know, remember, keeping it doesn't mean that you have to finish it all at once. You can break it into smaller steps and just let yourself enjoy the process without having to put an end date on it, right? It can, like, UFOs are perfectly okay to have. You don't have to finish a quilt within a year. I'm curious what the longest UFO in this community on YouTube here is. So if you have like a really, really big UFO, let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear it, and it might make some people feel a little bit better, okay? So put it down in the comments if you have a really, really old UFO. It's totally okay to have UFOs. You know, I kind of hop between projects myself, you know, just depending on what I feel like working on at the moment. But, you know, on the flip side, if this project no longer fits where you are creatively, you need to give yourself permission to move on. And remember, letting go doesn't mean that you have to like toss it in the trash. Please don't just toss like your good hard-earned money that is well spent on beautiful fabric into the trash. That might trigger some like really, really negative feelings for some people. And that's not the only option. There are so many ways to pass it on. And I want to give you some of those ideas right now. So you could donate it to a local quilting charity or a guild, or friends might love to take on your UFO. It could feel like a gift to somebody else who may not have the funds to purchase all of these fun fabrics and things that are different from their stash. You know what it's like when you get to go shopping in somebody else's closet and like you see all of these beautiful things that you would love to have in your closet. And think of it like a gift, right? It's a gift because it frees you up for new creative possibilities, and somebody else gets inspired by what you have already started. I've traded UFOs with friends before. If I say, hey, I am so done with this quilt, whether it was giving me headaches or like I couldn't get things to line up properly. Back in the day when I was just learning how to do flying geese, and I did not, I was so done with that quilt. You know, I traded it with a friend, and she was working on something more simple, and she wanted to give a go at the flying geese. You know, one quilter's UFO is another quilter's dream project, right? So swapping unfinished blocks can spark joy for the both of you too, and it's a really great way to refresh your own inspiration. You can also ask around. You know, ask a local quilt guild if you don't have any idea of any in your area. You can ask a quilt shop, you can call around. There's different charities that are at the local level and the national level that you can get in touch with, because there's always somebody who is going to love the challenge of finishing a project, and that someone else has already started, right? Like you've already laid the groundwork for a project. I know people who absolutely love the fabric shopping part and the picking out the fabrics and the picking out the pattern that's going to go perfect with these fabrics. And then there's other people who hate that part but love the sewing part of it, right? It's a perfect marriage, right? It's perfect marriage. So look for some places that your quilt can get a second life at. And you know, there's sometimes UFOs don't really have to become quilts at all. This is another option for you if I haven't given you enough, okay? You can repurpose some blocks. If you didn't like the way a quilt was going, but like you liked, you know, you got maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 blocks, you could turn them into smaller projects, turn them into pillows or like table runners or tote bags. Tote bags are really great for those UFO blocks, right? Or even you can use them as like practice pieces for free motion quilting. It's really amazing how a project can transform when you start thinking outside of the box. I mean, the idea is endless, right? Like there's so many different ways that you can repurpose or reuse or give those quilts or those UFO projects or whatever it is, doesn't have to be quilts, some new life if you're not going to finish them. So whether you decide to keep them or pass them on, repurpose them, however you decide, the most important thing is to, I think, honor where you are right now on your creative journey and to let go of any guilt that is weighing you down about it. I think oftentimes we get really used to that kind of like quiet negative self-talk about either like
Budgeting is kind of the first thing that comes to mind because quilting fabric is not cheap, and we get used to that small, quiet voice that makes us feel guilty about those actions, right? But I think that, at least for me, and kind of the transformation that I had last year with my UFO stash, was telling that voice to hush, because I didn't need it. It wasn't helpful. And instead, I replaced it with something that was a lot more positive and a nicer story. Because if I went into my friend's house, right, and tell me if you feel the same way. If I went over to my friend's house and she had, I don't know, 47 UFOs over there, and she was telling herself what a terrible person she was, and how, like, she wished she could finish them all, but she can't, I wouldn't speak like that to her. I wouldn't. I would acknowledge that she's got those quilts, but, like, I would be a much kinder friend than that. And I think that you would probably tell me the same thing. If I was being really down and hard on myself, you'd tell me the same thing. So I don't know why it's acceptable that we talk to ourselves that way, in the way that we make ourselves feel guilty for things that we really can't control, because you do change over time as a human, and as a creative too. I really want you to remember that every stitch tells a story, and some stories are meant to be finished, and some stories are meant to be finished by someone else, or not even at all. And really, that's okay. So we've talked about, like, how you can get rid of some of the UFOs. How can you, like, unburden yourself with some of those maybe high numbers of UFOs that you have. And now I want to go back to the UFOs that you do want to finish, the ones that do bring you joy. And here's how to make some progress with those UFOs without feeling overwhelmed. Because I know opening up that closet of UFOs that I have, it's overwhelming, right? So I want you to break it into steps, and I want you to focus on one block or one section of one project at a time, because it is way less daunting to work one foot in front of the other than it is to focus on the entire journey that you have to go. It's much less daunting, and it is much more satisfying. Okay. Another thing that you can do is you can schedule the UFO time, right? Like, we schedule regular quilting time, right? If you're not doing that, look into that. It's important, okay? Schedule regular quilting time on your calendar, like it is your job, like you would coffee with a friend or something, right? So I was like, set aside 15 minutes here and there to work on your UFOs, and you'd be surprised at how much progress you can make in short bursts. I've had people tell me that they worked on one UFO every single month for a year, and while it might not make a dent in your UFO pile, that's 12 quilts or 12 projects that got finished, and that's amazing. Which brings me to this. I want you to celebrate progress. Okay, even tiny steps forward are absolutely worth celebrating. I recently discovered some scrappy blocks that I made years ago, and I really loved them at the time, but I didn't have it in me to continue making them over and over and over again. But I loved them, and I couldn't get rid of them, right? So I turned them into a table runner, and it's now one of my favorite pieces in my home, because it really does. It brings me so much joy, even though it's much smaller than I had originally anticipated. So I repurposed them. And at the end of the day, UFOs are just part of the journey. You can't be a quilter and not have UFOs eventually. If you're a brand new quilter, you may not have any UFOs, but as you go further and further with your journey, and you get more ideas, and you get more excited about projects, and you start developing like a fabric stash and everything, those UFOs that you acquire, they're proof that you're creative, you're curious, and you are willing to try. Try new skills, try new fabrics, try new patterns, whether you finish them or repurpose them or you let them go. The quilting journey isn't about perfection. It's about joy, and having joy in what you are creating. So yeah, what's in your UFO pile? I want to chat about it. I want you to share your stories, or like the struggles that you have, or like if you finished 12 of them last year. I would love to hear about them down in the comments down below. thank you so much for spending this time with me today on Loose Threads and Stitches. I can't tell you how much it means to me to share this comfy space with you. My hope for this series is that it becomes a place that you can come back to, whether you're looking for inspiration, you're looking for guidance, or you're just looking for a moment to breathe and connect with somebody else who gets it. We are all on this creative journey together, and I think that it's so important to celebrate the highs in your quilting journey, embrace the challenges, and also to remind ourselves why we started quilting in the first place, right? If it's one thing that I want you to take away from today's episode, it's this. Having UFOs or unfinished projects, work in progress, whatever you want to call it, or moments where you just feel stuck, it doesn't make you any less of a quilter or a creative. It makes you a human. And life is full of ups and downs, and it's in those moments of imperfection where we often find the most growth. Honestly, the best stories, the deepest joy come from those moments where we are growing as a person. So I would absolutely love to hear from you. Just put down in the comments how many UFOs are hanging in your sewing space. Yeah. What's your plan for them? Are you going to finish them? Are you going to go look through them and see if you can repurpose some of them? Or are you going to just let them go? So let's chat in the comments. And if this episode resonated with you, I would be so grateful if you would subscribe to my channel on YouTube. It really means a lot to me, and it means a lot to people at YouTube to know that you enjoy what I'm sharing. So if you would do that, I would greatly appreciate it. This is just the beginning of Loose Threads and Stitches, okay? This is just the beginning, and I can't wait to see where this journey takes us. I still plan on sharing all of the same tutorial videos, the technique videos, all the mistakes that I make videos. You're gonna see those, okay? So this is not replacing any of my other videos. This is just adding on to the quilting journey so that nobody has to feel like they are ever in this alone, okay? So until next time that I see you on here, I want you to keep stitching, keep creating, and remember that every thread tells a story, and so does every unfinished one. I'm Christen with ISeeStarsQuilting. I'll see you next time. Have a great week.